Gotcha.
Hey, how's it going everybody? It's me, the Gameconomist, and today I'll be working on another PvP guide for Dark Souls 3. And this time I'll be working with the Bonewheel Shield. That's right, this is one of the great shields in the game that everyone ignores for some reason, and I wasn't sure why, so I thought I'd give it a try. If you want to pick up one of these bad boys, it is not too hard at all to do that. You just head over to the Catacombs of Karthus, where there will be 4 Bonewheel Shield skeletons located in a narrow hallway. And these guys drop the Bonewheel Shield as well as, I believe, large Titanite shards. They don't drop a lot, so you get it pretty quickly. Let's move on to talking a little bit about the shield itself. So, it weighs 15 units, and it requires 30 strength. And that's why you don't see it more often, because it weighs too much, and it requires you to have either a strength build or a quality build, neither of which are very popular anymore. All the try-hard fights have moved over to like dark infusions, maybe magic infusions to a little, to a lesser degree. So this shield doesn't really fit in with the current meta in any way, and you have to go out of your way to farm one, and all of that kind of stacks up. Is why you don't see it very often. Let's talk about what's nice about it. It actually has the stability of the Black Knight shield, which is good. You kind of wish it was better, right? Because it's a great shield. But in my opinion, part of the problem is the Black Knight shield is simply too strong. They, if From came back, I would hope they nerfed the stability on the Black Knight shield because it's simply too good. So it has a stability similar to the Black Knight shield, and then it has a physical absorption of 100%. How does that make sense? It has holes in it. Right? You've seen this shield, right? It's got giant holes in it. Anybody with a pokey weapon should be able to poke right through it. Well, anyways, yeah, physical absorption of 100%, which is just fine. That actually makes it more usable. So it's a little surprising you don't see it as often, but it's a very kind of like average great shield. The magic absorption and the dark absorption are a little higher. The fire and lightning absorption are a little lower, and I guess that makes sense because it's a wooden shield, right? Wooden shields tend to have that sort of archetype to them. Now I want to talk about how infusions work with this shield, and this is where it starts to get a little more confusing. There's a lot of decisions to make. Basically, the only infusion that matters, in my opinion, is either the heavy infusion or no infusion at all. With no infusion, you retain the highest amount of stability. So if you're just looking to use this as kind of like a cool great shield, don't infuse it. I'm going to be two-handing it and using it like a weapon. Now, since I'm two-handing it, my strength is going to get that little bonus modifier, and I think it gave me like a bonus, like 50 damage. I want to say 40 or 50. At the same time, when I infuse it to heavy, my stability falls just a little bit, but my physical absorption stays at 100%. Really important. And then, its best scaling is on strength, so you get the most AR out of it on strength scaling. You could do a bleed infusion, you could do a poison infusion, and I strongly don't recommend these. I've heard that Wheel of Fate can, proc the bleed really fast, and that's mostly true, but it's going to be people who have no idea what they're doing that are going to kind of run into your shield, because the weapon art, Wheel of Fate? The weapon art is extremely slow, right? And you don't necessarily hit them with the entire... It has multiple hit frames. You don't necessarily hit them with all of it. You don't get a clean hit all of the time. Usually you catch them while they're rolling away. So you're not going to necessarily proc bleed super fast. And even if you hit them with all the hit frames, it won't proc bleed by itself. You still have to follow up with your weapon, except you're all out of stamina because it eats stamina all day. So I don't recommend bleed. I don't recommend poison or dark. Go with heavy or no infusion. Alright, and now I'll talk about the build. As I was just saying, I take my strength to 66 and I dual wield it for the most part. I have a backup S-stock to, kind of pressure opponents who are being way too passive, or to just finish someone off, like if his Tears of Denial broke and he's rolling like a maniac. I don't want to try and finish him off with the rolling attack on the shield. I just want to finish the game, right? Some other weapon pairings you should consider, maybe a longsword, maybe the Man Serpent Hatchet infused to heavy, You could also consider even using the club or the reinforced club, because those are pure strength weapons. So since you have 66 strength, those will do about as good as they can do. Although I have to say, to really get the most out of those, you have to dual wield them, not use them with the shield. So yeah, it's kind of iffy. I think that the longsword will probably perform the best overall, followed by the man-serpent hatchet. And the man-serpent hatchet will allow you to have a kind of like a heavy man-serpent hatchet and deal chip damage to the Black Knight shield. I've also brought a healing item, the Castus, which I just leave on my body. And I also have the Filianor Chime as usual, because Tears of Denial is really useful on this. It's a very, if you're treating it like a weapon, I think it's even slower than some of the ultra weapons in the game. It's just, the R1 comes out pretty slow. Your best move is the running attack, of course. The R2 comes out laughably slow. And then the weapon art is a little faster than the R2, but slower than the R1. It's kind of like, you know, Mama Bear, Papa Bear, Baby Bear. It's Baby Bear. It's in the middle. So, speaking of the weapon art, the real problem with the weapon art, there's two things going wrong with it. It has a very long wind-up, and it eats all of your stamina. So, you can't really, you know, you can use it, but you're left kind of prone at the end of it. And if your opponent knows that about the shield, you see, I was kind of relying on opponents not knowing much about the shield, but if they know you're going to be all out of your stamina at the end of it, they can just turn around and spam R1 on you. So, it's kind of... yeah, you kind of rely on your opponents not knowing that you're out of stamina. And I tried stamina. I took it all the way to 35 on my first build, which of course would bring it up to 40 with the prisoner chain. Didn't really help. Just wasn't enough. If From comes back and does a balance change, I would love to see this shield get a little bit of love. I think that they could definitely lower the stamina. If they don't lower the stamina, then they need to increase when the hyper armor starts up on it, right? Like, it shouldn't be so easy to interrupt. Or they need to change the speed that it comes out at. It needs to be faster than the R1. That would be really nice. Because when you actually land the weapon art and you're two-handing the Bonewheel shield, it deals like plenty of damage. It deals like 550 to 700 damage, depending on what your opponent is wearing, right? So it does really well there, actually. In fact, this might be the highest damaging great shield in the game, just because of that weapon art. I loved it, actually. It was a lot of fun. Since we're talking a little bit about the moveset, I want to point out there's a little bit of a combo between the R1 and the weapon art. A lot of players who get hit by the R1, if they don't roll away just right, they will be hit by the weapon art if you bring it out right away. Like, they'll be clipped by it, either like the beginning frame of it or the ending frame. They end up getting clipped by it unless they roll perfectly away. So you can do that as kind of like a kind of a combo, but again, it kind of leaves you prone too, because if your opponent sticks around, they can just start chopping you up with R1 spam. So you're taking a big risk. The other thing worth mentioning is the weapon art works extremely well as a wake-up attack. So if you knock your opponent over, and maybe you could even have a dedicated build for this, I don't know, one that uses like emit force or force, right? If you knock your opponent over, they almost can never escape that weapon art. I knocked over plenty of people. None of them escaped the weapon art. When they got up, they always get clipped by it, and sometimes they would get up and eat all the frames from the attack. So yeah, not bad at all, especially if you have a build where you intentionally want to backstab a lot of the time. Which is all of my builds at this point. I love backstabbing. Give me those backstabs. Alright, well, with the time I have left, let's move on to talking about duels. Basically, in short, if you were fighting somebody who had a dark infused weapon, and it was a fast reactive weapon, and they had a nice shield with them, like the Black Knight shield, you're going to get poo-pooed on. That's because I'm not able to break their guard with my attacks, but they're able to deal chip damage through my guard. So it's very bad in that situation. And those are the kind of situations where I think I would have been much happier if I'd simply used a Man-Serpent Hatchet and treated the shield like more of a regular shield. Right, because if you just try to kill them using the Great Shield, you know, if you use it as a weapon, you're really going to lose to those dark infused reactive builds. Now, on the other hand, if you're fighting somebody who had a pure physical weapon, your odds of succeeding go way up at that point. It actually becomes kind of a decent weapon, you know, two-handing it. I was dealing about 300 damage per R1, maybe a little less. It just depended on what armor they were wearing. But what was nice is, especially the running attack I want to mention. The running attack, you can get near your opponent, hold your guard up. They've got pure physical, so they can't deal chip damage, and they know they're not going to break your guard, and you're just able to kind of like pressure them really well and bring out that running attack, which the running attack appears to have a lot of active frames on it. Like, you know, even though it looks like it shouldn't be hitting it, it'll hit every now and then, and it's really surprisingly good at pressuring opponents. After practicing with this weapon for a while, I was genuinely impressed by how effective it was. You know, I didn't think that it would be good at all. I thought it would be more of a meme weapon, but I think that it actually does rank as kind of a viable PvP duel weapon. It just doesn't do well against the top tier. That's all it comes down to. If you're going to fight somebody top tier, you're going to struggle. If you fight somebody using a pure physical weapon and it's not a meta weapon, you actually have some advantages in there, especially if you're clever with your hidden S-stock and you're clever with the hidden crossbow, or you take advantage of your health regen really well and you keep your guard up. So yeah, I was genuinely surprised, and I'm looking forward to trying out some of the other great shields as weapons, like the Havel shield or the door shield. Alright, well let me wrap this up real fast. In Invasions, it scored very poorly for a lack of an R1 combo, which means that it did not punish Estus very well. It has no drop attack, and the weapon art was not as useful because opponents, once you were all out of stamina, could quickly crowd you, especially since the animation is so long, and you would be in a lot of trouble. The best thing you could do in an invasion is chill out around the ads and just be very defensive until your opponent gets kind of impatient. But the problem is, I get impatient. In PvE, it has a really nice stagger on anything that you fight. So if you're fighting a non-boss enemy, right, an AI, 90% of the time you're going to get a stagger at the end of your hit. Also, the R1, besides being an attack, also counts as a block. So it's a very defensive sort of weapon if you're using it as a weapon. Otherwise, I would say the real problem is that it does not do enough damage, even with the weapon art, you know, which you can use a lot better in PvE than you can in a duel or in an invasion. The AI does not know how to take advantage of your low stamina, and so you can just kind of walk right up, throw the weapon art into your opponent, and then roll away. So yeah, probably one of the better great shields for PvE if I had to guess, but it's not going to blow your mind. You would do better off with just a simple straight sword. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. There will be Invasions followed by the tier ratings, and I'll see you next time.
I'm really rich. I'll show you that in a second.
My name is Jeff.
We meet again.
Don't you run away! Be still, you rat! NANI?!
Bigger and better and stronger than ever before.
Is that you?
I've been waiting for you, Patrick.
SpongeBob, you're scaring me!
Thank you. Nope. I'm sorry.
It's a trapper's wife.